episode of
The Marriage Conversation.
Yeah. So, if it's your first time listening, go back, check us out.
Please. I hope this is the last time he says this.
All right, cool. I won't
We're
say
going to be on episode 100.
And I'm going to say, if this is your first time listening,
Go back and listen to the other 101 episodes.
Yeah, they
we started
did too.
episode 0.
Yeah, we did. We literally started at ground zero, man. We built this thing from the ground up. You know what I'm saying? Anywho, my name's EJ McDuffie.
I'm Nakia McDuffie.
Yeah, and together we are...
We the McDuffies.
Yeah, we the McDuffies. The McDuffie masterpiece.
Yes.
All of that. So, let's jump right into it.
So this is a topic I wanted to talk about, because we talk about it all the time.
Where? When?
It's just in regular conversation with our friends.
It does come up quite a bit.
Yeah. So this is just our pandemic story.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people didn't make it through the pandemic in their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful that we did. So just starting off, we got married, 3 or 4 months?
No, the pandemic had already started, but we just didn't know about it. Well, let me rephrase. The pandemic, it wasn't a pandemic. It was a...
There was nothing. There was the pandemic, or the quarantine didn't go into effect till March.
Yeah, I know, but the virus itself was here.
Yeah, but we're talking about the pandemic.
Okay, all right. So yeah, we got married
in October.
6 months before.
5 months. 6 months is April.
Okay.
But we got married in October 2019. Mm-hmm. Thank God, we were able to have a mask-free, social distance-free wedding.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Grateful for that. So all of our family and friends were able to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And
mask off. Hey, mask off.
What mask? We didn't even know what a mask was. Like, face covering what? Social distance.
What? Yeah. None of that. That didn't exist.
We don't know her. Okay?
Yeah, that didn't exist.
Yeah, so we got married, and then in March of 2020, we had all these goals for 2020. It was like, manifest 2020.
Oh, God. We had
to move out of my parents' house because we only planned to be there for a year.
We had a vision board. We had the thermometer with saving goals. We had it all.
Mm-hmm. And then the world shut down. Right.
Yeah.
World stopped. And we still on pause right now. Yeah. Technically, for real. So I thought this would be a good story to share, a conversation to have about how we as a couple and as a relationship thrived and survived during a pandemic and quarantine.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know too, that was our first year of marriage. We were newlyweds.
We were 5 months.
I mean, we're still newlyweds, because I think newlywed, that definition doesn't leave to like year 5, but still, we were like fresh out the womb. We couldn't even walk yet.
Right. Still on the teat.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when the pandemic first started, we were both like, "Oh, cool. We
get a couple weeks
home."
home.
The pandemic, the quarantine portion.
Yeah.
We're still in the pandemic. Let's not get it twisted.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, we get to stay home.
Couple weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I was already on spring break from my school because I'm a teacher. So I was like, oh, I'm going to get an extra 2 weeks.
Extended break. Yeah.
That's what's up. Cool. They'll figure it out. The government's going to work things out. It's going to be all good. The lie detector test found out that was a lie.
Because we had just come off vacation for real.
Yeah.
So we had went to Mardi Gras. And then...
Pause and think on that.
Yeah, we came back. And I did go to work because I had to work on that Friday. Like right after
town.
We went just to DC. It won't. Oh no! I went 2 places. So I went to DC. I took students to a couple museums out in DC. But then, like the following week, like leading right up to quarantine, we were in Wilmington doing a community service project. Mm-hmm. So we took a group of students from Virginia down to Wilmington and did that.
Yeah, and then we went to a funeral like right before,
literally,
when they initiated the stay home order, like right before the Saturday before they did that. We were at a packed funeral,
elbow to elbow, yeah, with strangers with no mask. Think about that.
But now that we gave you all those precursors, like to get into our story, like we were fine. We're like, okay, it's gonna be in the house. We're gonna get through this. Mm-hmm. And then come to find out, like, New York is just getting hit heavy with this thing.
Yeah, like
and
the epicenter.
I have lots of family in New York. And at the time, my grandmother was living there. And I remember saying to my mom, I said, if anything happens to my grandmother during this pandemic, I'm going to fight somebody. And I think maybe a week or two after the quarantine, her and my uncle went to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And then, long story short, they both died 2 weeks apart. Sorry. It's crazy to think about. Getting a little verklempt. But they both died 2 weeks apart.
Yeah.
And that had to be the angriest I was at God. Because I remember I found out that my uncle died, and I was the only one in the house that knew. And I wound up, like, telling my mom.
Yeah. It's because, though, at that time, like, the pandemic was so fresh and so new, and, like, nobody knew, like, who knew what. Like, because at this time, New York had so many people dying from the virus, thank you, that they were putting bodies in body bags and freezer trucks, like, on the streets of New York. And so, again, I told y'all in the previous episode, Nakia got 3,000 family members on her mama's side. So everybody playing telephone, calling, texting, in Facebook groups, group chats, everybody trying to see, like, all right, is the uncle okay? Is the uncle okay? And so everybody, like, just sending so much information at such a quick pace.
Yeah, so I wound up being the one telling my mom, and I couldn't believe it because he was my youngest uncle. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had to go stand in the grass to, like, ground myself. And it was dark outside. I took my shoes off and stood in the grass.
This was also in March in Virginia, y'all. Or maybe it might have been like early April, but either way, it still was cold outside.
It was. I remember, and I just remember, I was like, okay, I see the sky. I see that car. I was really trying to ground myself and keep myself from basically having an anxiety attack. And then I was so upset at God because then we couldn't even go to his funeral. I remember watching his funeral via Zoom with my brother at the kitchen counter, like me and him crying. I'm like, God is so mean. He is so evil. And then 2 weeks later, my grandmother passes, whom I was very, very close with. Mm-hmm. And if you watch previous episode and my arm's been out, I have a tattoo of her signature on my arm. Like, I was really close to my grandmother. I grew up with her. I lived with her. Mm-hmm. So once she passed, I was just like, honestly, I was like, bump it. I don't care about nothing. Like, I slept in. I was, we were drinking during the pandemic because we were in the house, but I was legit walking around the neighborhood with a cup and drinking, and I just was not being fully present in my life or in EJ's life or in Harper's life. I would get up and make sure she was dressed and get up in time when it was time for her to eat, and then I'll go back to bed. So I say all that to say, like, during that time, EJ really had to pick up the slack. I was a mess. And mind you, he was working from home, a full-time job that was still requiring work from him. Yeah. And
that's when nobody really knew this, like, what work from home was. Mm-hmm. Like, there was no, I mean, people had been working from home before, but for me, it was new. I worked at a college at the time, so it was completely new for everybody to be 100% remote. And so, yeah, it was a lot of, we trying to figure this thing out.
Right. So, and living in the house with a whole bunch of different people, and he had to deal with that. And at that time really was a blur to me. I just remember being in bed and being sad and anxious and confused and upset at God. Yeah. And I don't remember too much of anything.
Yeah, I think for myself though, like again, we've told this story a billion times at this point. I think when I was in the middle of it, I didn't realize that so much was going on because we were all in a pandemic, so that was new to all of us, and at least in our generation. Yeah. So that was new. We were newlyweds, and we weren't that new, but we were kind of new to living and actually being home with all of your family at one time. Like, because before the pandemic, everybody left and went to work, we went to school. So we would see people on the weekends or at night. And so everybody's schedule was always crazy, so we didn't have to worry about a lot of the overlap and all of that. But while we were there we were there for a year and a half, and a year of that was in the pandemic.
In the quarantine.
Mm-hmm. And so I say all of that to say, when we were going through it, I guess there were so many outside factors that I didn't even realize that Nakia wasn't doing, like, she wasn't
her full 100.
Yeah, she wasn't her full 100 in terms of like being a wife. And so when I hear her talk about it now, and I think about what she was doing and what our marriage looked like at that point, you know, I thank God that we made it through that time period. But, you know, it's opened my eyes now to be a little bit more, I guess, conscious about things like that.
And even during that time, like, I was working at a school, but I lost my job there. So I wasn't making money. EJ was the sole breadwinner. So luckily, or thankfully, we were living with my parents, so our bills weren't as high. And, you know, I was able to, you know, get money from other sources. But, you know, I didn't work for a year.
I should have left her. Remember that last episode when we said support? Where was my support?
I did come out of my funk and my depression. I started, you know, teaching Harper and getting on a schedule and a routine and stuff like that. And afterwards, I think after my grandmother's funeral, we decided to not come back to the house, and we stayed with our friends, David and Jasmine. Take a shot. You just heard David. Gotta go listen to a previous episode to get that inside joke. But we stayed with them for like a week just to kind of get out of the house and get a break from all of those people, even though we were still in the house with other people. It was less.
But I think for me, because I didn't know the grandmother that well, and while Nakia, her parents, her brother, her sister-in-law, even some of the kids were all in like mourning, like I couldn't mourn the loss of her grandmother because I didn't know her grandmother that well. Like of course, we're all from New Bern, and so I knew who she was. I had spent some time around her, but not as an adult. And so I think having the space and the opportunity to go stay with Dave and Jazz also allowed, one, for Nakia to kind of grieve by herself without the influence of her parents and family members, but also for me to get a break from the grieving of everybody. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever been in that situation where everybody around you is grieving and you didn't know the person, or you weren't that close with the person. And so, you know, all of that energy and being around the energy too is a little draining.
Yeah. I think leaving the house like kind of helped us like in our relationship. Like, we knew when we had to leave and like take a break, especially during the pandemic.
You couldn't really go nowhere, but we would get in the car and drive.
Walk around the neighborhood.
To
the park. Yeah.
We didn't start doing that till like later.
It was during the pandemic.
Yeah, but I understand that. But I'm talking about this specific time period, like around your grandmother, because that was in April, and then the funeral was in May, and then like at that point we were still fresh in. We didn't really. That was the first travel that we did was for the funeral, and it was like, well, heck, we already left. Like we might as well. And nobody was talking about vaccines or nothing. So, you know, don't eat us up in the comment section. The vaccine wasn't even a thing yet. So as long as you hadn't been around anybody that had been exposed, then you was good.
And I think the thing that like helped us during the pandemic is that, or during the quarantine, because like I said, we're still in the pandemic, but what helped us was just having a foundation in our relationship of friendship and already having communication. And I think even though EJ and I never had a conversation, and I never had to sit down with him and say, oh my God, I'm so sad that my grandmother died. I am grieving. I'm hurt. I can't fulfill my role. I think because we know each other so well, my body language, my action was able to communicate that with him. And he was able to understand and interpret that and then act appropriately. So I think that benefited us as well.
Yeah. I think the firm foundation was definitely an added benefit. And even though I said that leaving the house was great for Nakia to mourn, like having her family around also kind of insulated our marriage a bit during that tough period. Because I always say, like, I can't imagine if she would have had to deal with that and we were just newlyweds in a different city or state during a pandemic and it's just me and her and Harper. Like, I don't know what that would have looked like. And she, like she said, she had lost her job for a stint of that as well. So I don't know what that would have looked like, what that would have done for our marriage. And you know, it's easy for me to sit up here and say, like, yo, be a strong support system and do these things. But
it was like a system within a system.
Yeah, we had that system, because now, if we didn't have that and we were by ourselves and bills weren't getting paid and things like that, like God only knows what that would have done to our marriage.
Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, to kind of segue or just to talk about things that helped us during the pandemic and about our story, I think during the pandemic, when it first started, we were very intentional about still dating each other. Mm-hmm. Because after we got married, we started this thing called 222, where I think I saw it on Pinterest, but every 2 weeks you go on a date night. Every 2 months you spend a weekend away, and then every 2 years you take a trip together. Yeah. So we were very intentional we even put it on our calendars to remind us every 2 weeks we go on a date night.
I literally just got a notification. Hold on, let me see if I can show them.
It's our next date night.
Yeah.
But
can y'all see it? Oh, it's kind of apertured out.
Just screenshot it and put it on the screen.
Dang, yeah, they can't see.
Yeah, screenshot and put it on the screen. But we have notifications for when we're supposed to do those particular things. So when when the world shut down, there weren't restaurants open, there weren't venues open that you can go to, there weren't events that you could go to. So we literally had to be intentional about planning date night. Like now we can kind of say, oh, we're gonna go here, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Like then we had to actually plan and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. What supplies do we need? What materials do we need?
Yeah.
Luckily, the one thing we didn't have to worry about was a babysitter, because we lived in a house with my parents. So we'd be like, hey, Mom, can you watch Harper? We're having date night. Yeah. And Harper would go up to her room. She'd go to my mom's room and hang out in there until we were done with our date night. Like Harper just knew. Like she was with it. So I'm grateful for that. But the fact that we were just intentional about having that time with each other, it allowed us to have time by ourselves, allowed us to have time to talk about like our future plans and our goals, about what we're going to do about moving out of my parents' house and buying a house, and our goals for raising Harper, and even like where we wanted to move and getting jobs and stuff like that. So it just allowed us to have a lot of communication. And I also think that the fact that we were so intentional, it just made it fun. We were able to enjoy each other and do different things. Like we made cocktails. We had like a little competition where we were each the judge, which I don't even know how that worked. Yeah. EJ taught me how to play this dice game.
Yeah, CeeLo, 4, 5, 6.
We even had a date night where there was like a paint and sip going on.
Oh,
it
yeah,
was
that
free.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I just want to say this. Don't lose your thought.
Yeah.
This was so. I've been using Zoom for a long time, like way back in like 2017. So I was already familiar with Zoom. But on this paint and sip, this was probably like a month into the pandemic or into quarantine. And people didn't know how to mute their microphone. People was getting on there and just cussing out people in the background. Like, it was a bad experience. And I remember the person who was doing it was like real flustered. And again, like, imagine being an artist and your job is normally in person, but now you doing this paint and sip for all of America. Like, it was open to like a bunch of people. And so Buddy was flustered, and luckily...
I don't remember it that way. I had an enjoyable experience.
Luckily, me and Ikea had done paint and sip separately before, so we already knew what the experience was supposed to be.
This time was freehand because nobody drew anything.
Yeah.
Let me show y'all what we got since we're talking about it.
Not mine or yours?
Yours. So this is the scene that we painted. So this is EJ's rendition. Yeah. He never signed it.
I didn't, huh? So yeah.
So they just told us beforehand like the materials that we needed to get. So I think we ordered it from Michael's or went and picked it up.
Yeah, we picked it up.
And we got the boards, got the paintbrushes, and got the colors, and then we did this freehand. There's no pencil underneath here.
Yeah.
We artists.
I'm an artist for real. And I'm sensitive about my edge.
Mine is hanging up in my classroom.
So yeah. So like because we had some prior experience, so we knew what it was supposed to be about. But go ahead, you was going.
I was saying like you had you made arroz con pollo and we put on some music and we set up the table downstairs like we were at the beach.
And her parents got like a slide-in patio door, so we opened it up, got some fresh air on our
And then later that night we had a Zoom date night with some of our other couple friends, and we would call Dave and Jazz. Shout out.
Yeah,
and we would have like date nights with them, and that was a benefit of being quarantined. You were intentional about making those connections with people.
And that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
like
we're extroverts.
Being in quarantine is kind of like having a snow day. Like nobody could go anywhere, nobody could do anything. Everything was closed, and so it forces you to be it forces you to be creative. But like Nakia said too, it forced you to be intentional. And so like we were really intentional about reaching out to our networks, and we were really super creative about date nights and things like that. Like we had a spa night one time, like that was super fun. Like Nakia went to Five Below, Walmart, Target, all these places, and got like masks and body scrubs and all of that stuff. And we gave each other massages and facials and all of that. But because we were in a pandemic, like we were forced to do that, and we were forced to slow down. So that was like, the pandemic has been a gift and a curse. Like, yes, we lost millions of people. I don't know millions, but thousands, hundreds of thousands of people at this point. But there was some good, like a silver lining in all of that. Like us coming closer together and the creativity and all of those things in the date nights. So.
Yeah, I will say I think the pandemic was beneficial to our relationship because a lot of times, you know, as a couple, when you get married, like when we first got married, went on a honeymoon, we came back, and we were going to work.
Working.
So rip and running, we were living in Northern Virginia, so EJ's commute was an hour and a half to 2 hours either way. Even though it was only 20 miles from the house. So we didn't get to see each other a lot.
Two ships passing in the night.
We were able to spend a lot of time together and a lot of quality time. And we actually liked being around each other. Like there was a point when EJ and I were playing video games together.
Yeah, when it first started, man, it felt like vacation. We would stay up till like every night. Watching YouTube videos, watching the Terrell show,
laughing.
Like just kikiing, like two little schoolgirls.
I remember one night we even turned the TV off and we were just in the bed laughing about something stupid. Just trying to be like, shh, because our room was right next to my parents. I was like, don't be loud, I can't wake them up.
Yeah, but yeah, like Nakia said, it forced you to slow down and be intentional, and I think it really helped our foundation. Because now we back to the grind. Like, Nakia get up every day and go to work, and I work from home. And because she's a school teacher, she get up way before I do. And so, you know, there's times that we don't get to spend that much time during the day. But I think the benefit of me working from home is when she get home at like 3 o'clock or whatever, or 4 o'clock, I'm already here. So we could talk and get some of that quality time in. But...
And again, like I said, I think because we had a foundation of a friendship and we like being around each other. Like EJ mentioned this to me before, like there were friends who told him like, man, I need to get out the house. I need a break from my girl. and EJ would just be like, yeah, I get you. But he said he didn't agree because he liked being around me. That made my heart feel good.
Yeah, I don't get it. People still be calling me, telling me that, saying, man, I need to get out and get away from my lady.
Do you like her? Like, do you even like her?
Yeah. And I understand, like some people... They need their separate time and things like
Everybody
that.
does.
But, you know.
When push comes to shove, can you be around your spouse for an extended period of time?
At least, in the pandemic, it was at least 3 months straight that people were stuck. And that's a bad word, but stuck in the house, you know.
Bored in the house and I'm in the house.
Yeah, literally. We didn't go anywhere until May.
No, because we went to Purnell House. And Naja House. That was before the funeral. The funeral was like a month after she died.
That was the end of April, early May.
We snuck out.
It was probably May too. I would have to go back and look at my thing, but that was probably all in May because the funeral was at the end of May. So yeah.
Yeah. Either way. But yeah, that was our pandemic story, and I think it was important to share, just to show you all like our relationship has not been perfect. And it's had its rocky moments, but we have pushed through and survived and thrived through them and overcome them. And I feel like now that we can share that with you, so it may not be a quarantine situation, but you know, you may need to overcome some things, or you may need to pick up the slack for your spouse, or you may need to become more intentional about date night. You may need to be more creative about dating your spouse. But I think that's important, that, you know, once you get married, you don't ever want to stop dating them. What you did to get them is what you do to keep them. Yeah. So I think just sharing our pandemic experience can help in any tough situation, any valley that you have in your relationship.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, you got to be two willing people that's willing to put in the work to overcome. Right, have those hard conversations, overcome whatever this dark season is in your marriage. But if you're willing to put in the work and fight for it, then, you know, we are a living example that you can get through that. Now, again, I know that there's more severe cases and all of that stuff, but if there's two people who are willing to put in the work, again, I think that y'all could overcome any of those struggles.
Facts.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
facts, no sprinter.
That's all we got for y'all for this episode.
Yeah.
You know, drop down in the comments and let us know if this was helpful for you. Yeah. I know tonight we talked a little bit more about ourselves than we normally do, but we had to give y'all some background and some context to the story to let y'all know that we real people. We go through real things, and we're not above the, you know, the struggles or any of that. And so drop down in there, let us know if this was helpful. Also, if you gained any takeaways from it. I know Nakia kind of gave y'all some, but yeah, you know, what'd y'all do? How'd y'all survive the pandemic?
Right. What's your pandemic story? Quarantine story?
Yeah, share it with us.
Did you come out with a pandemic baby?
Right. We would love to hear your story. Yeah. So, and, you know, tell them they need to comment.
Oh, I guess you didn't want me to do this now. It's my job.
No,
all right, y'all, make sure you like,
comment,
subscribe. Follow us on social media platforms. We are The Marriage Conversation, and you can follow us individually. You'll see us on the page. Just tap it at the top. Make sure you leave a review, rate it, all that stuff.
All that. And share it with somebody. Seriously. Like, you never know who this podcast may help. It may not be for you, but maybe you know somebody that's married and they're going through a little rough patch right now. Share this episode with them with hopes that our story may help benefit them and save their marriage.
That's all we're here to do. Just help each other out. Reach out your hand and touch somebody.
Yeah. So until next time, man.
Thank you for listening and watching.
Yeah. We get it with y'all. Peace.